Today, we are thrilled to have Talia Arnold, Managing Director of the award-winning media company Exverus Media. With Talia's innovative approach to media strategy and a proven track record of delivering impactful campaigns, she truly is a driving force in the industry. So join us as we discuss her journey, the evolving media landscape, and the creative strategies that set Exverus apart. Let's get started. So, Talia, thank you so much for being on the show. It means a ton to me because, as you know, I'm a huge fan. For the listening audience, Talia is one of my favorite all-time media people, and I've met a lot of media people in my long career, and she is the managing director of an award-winning media company called Exverus Media. So, Exverus is Latin for something? What does it mean?
Yes, and people always get it confused. Is it Exverus? No, it's not. It's Exverus, which means from the truth. Which, in the world of advertising, you don't often think about the truth as being fundamentals. But when we started the company, our whole foundational, philosophy was that everything that we would do would be based on the truth, whether it's the truth about your business, the truth about your consumer, your customer, or even the results that we're sharing with you about the results of your advertising campaigns. We're going to give you the truth, the good, bad, the ugly. It's
a great name. I mean, when someone asks me like, oh, what's the name of your company? I'm like, it's two white guys. It's not as interesting as your story. So how did you find your way to Exverus Media? Basically,
I met Bill Durant, who the founder, when he was a sole proprietor, sole owner, sole employee. He was doing independent contract work, and I was at another agency working on a beer brand, and he came on to help with some projects as a freelancer, and he and I met, and we just totally hit it off, and I really admired him and respected what he was doing, and I'd always wanted to do something more entrepreneurial, and so he and I basically went to coffee, and he said, yeah, as this thing grows, I'll try to bring you on. And shortly after I left the big agency, because like I said, I wanted to be freelance, and then he wound up getting more work, and he brought me on, and then we had a third partner. We have a third partner as well. And it was the three of us for a while. And that was 10 years ago.
I will attend a lot of the industry trade shows because I find inspiration. I like, meeting the people. Certainly over the years have entered and won my share of awards. But I think the last show I went to, you guys won two things. You seem to be on this roll of winning, media strategist of the year, or media plan of the year. What do you attribute that business momentum that you guys have right now? What's leading to all this success?
The first thing is that when it comes to the awards, the element of winning an awards has two components to it. One is there a compelling narrative around the brand and what they were trying to do? And, was the agency able to do something different and breakthrough and creative that, was outside the normal expectations? That's one part of it. The other part of it is, are you able to demonstrably prove a business outcome for the client? And so we are just extremely disciplined on both of those two elements when we create our campaigns. I would say, we've always been very, everyone says this, but we really are very results focused. We start with, what does the client want to do? Okay, great. How are we going to measure that? What are the specific actions that we're going to take to measure that specific outcome? What tech do we need to bring into place? We bring all the people together, not just the media planners and the buyers and the strategists, but, the analytics and the ad ops team, to figure out exactly what we're going to put into place to make sure that we're measuring those outcomes. Do we need to, bring on a third party to do custom research? Do we need to field, post-consumer surveys to make sure that we achieve certain objectives? So the results part almost comes first. And then we go to, okay, how are we going to get there? And oftentimes the clients that we're working with, we call them culture creating, growth stage brands. So when we say they're culture creating, that they're either creating a new category or they're operating differently in a category that exists. And they're at a phase in their growth where they're really relying on paid advertising to get them to the next level. So that presents, a huge challenge for us, as the media agency, to have to be responsible for such a big portion of the business that they want to drive, but then also allows us to be just very aggressive with like the things that we want to do and what we recommend. And so we look for, again, like to go to the drawing board and say, what is unique about this business challenge? How are we going to meet the consumer's needs and deliver this brand experience to them in a way that's going to be more impactful than what our competitors are doing?
That's fascinating to me. How do you find that? And can you sense, I guess the question I'm asking is like, I think every client out there realizes they need to grow their business, but it seems like some are hungrier than others. Some might be thinking more about the next quarter versus the next year, 2 years, 3 years. I think you would probably agree the best clients are not only thinking quarterly, but they're also thinking long-term, like year 1, year 2, year 3. Do you get a sense of those clients right from the beginning? Like when you like, do you find yourself both talking about results on the so-called first date? How do you find those growth-minded clients? As one question. The second one, at this point, after 10 years, do they just all talk about you at dinner parties and that's how you're getting your business?
That would be amazing. That would be incredible. I will say that a lot of them do find us.
That's cool.
I mean, it's a relationship-driven business, like any business, really. But I think a couple things like fell into place really nicely. So, like Bill had a lot of experience working with Nestle. Nestle is a huge CPG organization that had a ton of brand managers. So he had a lot of, he was working on a portfolio of a ton of different brands. So he was able to meet with a lot of different brand managers. I had worked with also a ton of different brands, also in CPG. And so we both kind of had a lot of contacts in that one area. Our founding client was Cliff Bar, another huge brand marketing organization, tons of brand managers that were super smart, Bay Area based. So they were happy to work with a California company, and we could travel and see them often. And then they would go on to other CPG companies and recommend the work based on the experience that they had with us. And, being a small agency, and especially in the beginning, I mean, the mindset was so much like service, paying it forward, doing more, going above and beyond, doing things for free. I mean, doing more than the norm to win trust and just have such a high level of like personal customer service that then people remembered us, and then they went on, and then when people were asked, that's been, I don't know, 85% of our business probably.
That's huge. So I've learned that when I started this podcast, I thought it was going to be, well, candidly, I did it because I want to learn. I'm going to ask you some questions that the audience is going to be like, why are you asking these questions? Because I just want to have the best definition of some media terms. So later in the show, I'll ask you probably some pretty straightforward questions. But I'm doing this to learn. And I thought, okay, I'll have entrepreneurs. I'm going to have some athletes in the future. I'm having a lot of like CMOs, a lot of like media professionals. It turns out though, a lot of clients are listening to the podcast. So if you're a client out there, and there's so many media companies. Someone told me there's 7,000 advertising agencies in the US, and I imagine there's a ton of media companies. What is the perfect client for Exverus Media? Like, is it a CPG, West Coast? And I want you to answer that question. And then the second part is, I always hate it when someone judges my own agency based on headcount, because guess what? We're senior people. We've worked on some of the biggest brands in the world. We've worked on global things. So don't put us in the box of boutique when our thinking is global and transcends like what you would get from a little creative shop. So I want to understand, perfect client out there. Who is it for you guys?
Even though we have a lot of experience in, consumer goods and CPG, and that's been foundational. To me, we have strong vertical expertise there, but to me, it is much more about mindset and the types of clients that we absolutely love working with are the ones that want to look at things holistically. So one of the biggest challenges that we see with any client that's trying to grow their business is that they'll often tell us is, I have so many different departments. I've got my email over here, I've got my home over here, I've got brand marketing handled by this person, I've got sales over here, I've got experience, and everything's, highly sophisticated, but also disjointed. And so a lot of times brands will come to us and say, I've got all these different elements and they're kind of working well, but we don't know what's working the best and we don't know how to bring it all together. And that is something that for us is like perfect, because we have developed systems and processes to help those types of clients look at everything together. And it goes back to like what I was saying about, the truth. And this was one of the first like service offerings that we provided to clients is we said, you know what, if Exverus is running the media or someone else is running it, we don't care. We'll help you report on everything and we'll tell you what's working and what's not and where you should put your money. We don't care if it's, if it's within our budget or someone else's budget. We're going to tell you what's the best way to spend dollars moving forward. And that was really compelling to clients, for obvious reasons, because they knew that we weren't incentivized to tell them to spend this way. It was just about, okay, what's working, what's not? How can we consult with you to where you want to go? So clients who are ready to sort of do that and bring things together and look at everything holistically, and then, ideally allow us to make strategic recommendations and execute them, and be willing to try new things and test some new things and be open to some of the findings that we might share that might be surprising.
You said a word that kind of gives me shivers is, you said testing. I'm doing something wrong and you have to help me. Is over the years, I have worked with clients. One is, I'm picking up right now, CPG client. And it was the first time they were doing a serious advertising campaign. So very much an integrated effort. And we had a test market. I think the flight was something like 8 weeks. I remember saying like, let's measure even beyond 8 weeks because maybe there's a halo effect. And we thought we did a good job of saying, okay, let's see if this leads to incremental sales. Let's see if this thing called advertising works. Well, we get to the end of it. By my measure, it was impactful. By the client's measure of the test, it was impactful. But the next thing we heard is, well, actually, it didn't make enough impact on our business. And it was just so deflating because we had worked on this. We gave birth to this brand. It was a national brand. Until this day, they're still not advertising. And I don't get it. So how do I manage my own team's expectations? When someone says they want to do a media test, am I supposed to ask them, is their budget after this media test? What is the question I'm supposed to ask them so it doesn't just become a fireworks? It's up, smoke in the air. It just goes away.
So it's very common. It happens very commonly. Brands might be fearful about spending too much money. So they decide, oh, we'll just do a test and we'll just do we'll spend a small amount and we'll see if it works. And unless that test has been, rigorously validated, we won't even recommend doing it, because if you're spending such a tiny amount and you're so fearful of every dollar that's going to go out the door, and you're not spending enough that it is going to make a meaningful business impact, then it's a waste of money, honestly. You either have to decide if a test is going to be a test to learn something and nothing and no other expectations, or if a test is meant to drive some sort of substantial, meaningful business outcome. And you have to decide which one of those two things it is. The other thing that we've seen happen is we've seen clients say, okay, I want to do a test and, I'm going to spend, this 2%, budget amount and see what happens. But then to your point, like asking, is there budget for after this? You absolutely have to ask that question, because what if the test says, yeah, this was a good test, and in order to roll this out nationally, that would cost you a media budget of $200 million. Well, for a small company, that's never going to make any sense. So why would you do that? Why would you set up a test that's designed to prove that you actually need to be spending $200 million where that's not even the realm of possibility? So one of the things that we like to do is we do an analysis of, where is the business today? How much are their sales? How much are their sales per market, per store? What makes sense to invest per market, per store relative to how much sales they're actually doing today, to see if it even makes sense to invest at those tiny amounts, because oftentimes buying, small local media is way less efficient than buying it nationally. So it's kind of like you either have to be in or out. You sort of can't like half do it.
Two quotes are coming into mind. One quote someone once said is, you can't put your toe in the water and expect splashy results.
There you go. Love that.
And my last company was acquired by a London firm called VCCP. And I remember going into their offices and they had painted like big, huge, all type. It only works if it all works. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was a great way. And they were a big agency and they had like different like departments or whatever, but like it helped them realize like we cannot have siloed thinking. We have to be looking at the whole consumer journey. So I love that. Okay. So the old 100-year-old, John Wanamaker, I think he had a bunch of stores. I think he eventually sold to Macy's, but this is like 100 years ago. And he had that quote that is probably the most overused quote ever. Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. Mm-hmm. Well, here we are 100 years later. How has ROI and measuring gotten more accurate over the years? Or is there still a long way to go?
Now, of course, we know that we are measuring so many more. We're measuring everything. We're measuring anything you could possibly want to measure, we can now measure. You can measure how long people's eyeballs are on your banner ad today versus yesterday. Literally. You can measure, how many people saw a video on ESPN before they clicked on a sponsored link on Amazon and bought your product. I mean, anything you want to know today is available.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the question is, I know half of my advertising is working at, first of all, that quote is BS. I mean, it's obviously, it's not literal.
Yeah.
So I think what we know today is that there are, macro factors and macro changes that happen in businesses that are clear and obvious. A CMO or a CEO knows if their business is doing better this quarter than last quarter, right?
Yeah.
And if the campaign was running this year and it wasn't running that last year, it's very likely they're going to attribute it to the campaign. But then to your question, and we've had other, clients ask us this, clients where they're like, yeah, everything is going great. Our sales are great. Our social is great. Every product we launch does really well. It's all just going really well. We just don't know why and where should we double down and where can we sort of cut back. And that's where the more rigorous analysis that is available now can be done with things like, market, media mix modeling, using advanced software to, forecast scenarios using AI and saying, okay, everything's working really well. Well, what if, It allows you to now do these what if scenarios and say, oh, what if I spent more on social and less on TV? What would that potentially do for my revenue? What would that do for my ROI? And you can run these scenarios now, very quickly and easily. That's what I mean when I say like, there's so much more that's available today that you can literally look up those answers to that question of which half is the advertising is working better than the other. And I can not just look backwards, but look forwards and plan for that and make decisions based on that. And that's something that I think is really exciting and cool.
That's super exciting. As you're talking, I'm thinking, wow, the job of a media strategist today is so much more complex than when I first got in the business. Because you got, just the other day, Paramount, all the strings, there's more streaming services, there's the fragmented media landscape, you got more content channels, you got more, I was reading an article today about Cannes and how it used to be, advertising agencies, and it was like all technology companies, and like the marketing ad stack is like out of control, and you got AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, you got more data, you got more private concerns, you just got consumers who, by the way, are more discerning, but they're more distracted, and you have what's happening in the world. And I won't get into politics, but you talk about, something that'll just kind of freeze up your business and kind of, scare you to death. If you're a media strategist today, what are the qualities you have to have? You have to, because you mentioned, it seems like you need a math brain, but there is an art to it, and you got to be. Tell me, if you're hiring someone, what a young media strategist nowadays needs to have, what skill set? Because they can't have everything. But what do you look for? Is there certain qualities?
Yes.
That's a tough question. I'm just throwing one out there, but yeah.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that someone needs to have is a mindset, a flexible and progressive, forward-thinking mindset. Basically what I'm saying is, if you're a person, who likes, routines and regularity and things to be constant and organized, forget it. This is what I love about this industry. I love that you can be math, science, creative, psychology, sociology, politics, entertainment. Like, it is all of those things. So you kind of have to be a Jack or Jane of all trades, and you have to be interested in technology 100%. You have to be interested in popular culture, right? You have to be interested in people and how people's minds work. You have to be interested in new products and new services. And that's another reason why I like this business. I love going to the grocery store. I love shopping. I love looking at different products and packaging and thinking about, why they might have been created and who they appeal to. And that you have to love that stuff. I
just got to pay you a compliment, and I felt it when I met Bill too. I think part of the secret sauce you guys have is your company. And I've met a bunch of people at your company. You're all wicked smart, but you pass the airplane test. If I'm going to sit next to you on a plane, or Bill, we're going to have a great conversation. So you're just good, caring human beings, but you're really curious and you love it. And I think one of the reasons the show is called Optimism Always is I love what I do. I think it's insane that I'm holding it's a podcast, so the audience can't see it, that I'm holding Kent water. And years ago when I met the founders, they wanted my help on that brand, but I had a conflict at the time. But I'm wow, this is perception strategy. No one knows this brand right now, but I'm going to help shape a perception that could make, moms and kids drink this thing they never heard of. So I love it. I think it's great, and it does change all the time. So you can't be rigid and feel like you have the answer. So to me, there's never, hey, I got a score of an A and I'm done. It's constantly learning. It's constantly evolving. How do you keep your company? Is there anything you do, like, I mean, AI, like, how do you keep your company innovative and on top of it? Do you guys do offsites? I know I will suggest, and when I do the recording for the upfront intro, I'll mention your newsletter because I think people should read your newsletter. But how do you keep the company innovative and creative and feeling that love and excitement for the industry you're in?
Yeah, it's crucial. It's crucial because, especially now, like you talked about at the beginning about how the job of a media strategist has changed so much. And it used to be very much about talking to publications and big media companies, right? That's what it used to be. I would meet with ESPN and New York Times and, CBS, and like, those are my media partners and they're going to come up with all the ideas. That's not what it is anymore, but at the same time, now it's also just, we'll just put the money into Facebook and Google. And, that's where we can reach 90% of our audience. So it would be very easy to do that.
Yep.
And that's what a lot of people do. And you can, but, that's not what breaks. And it's not just an opinion. It's just the research and the data all shows that creativity and, emotion and experiences are what get you to that next level. And so that's why we do focus so much on the creative and innovation and new ideas. And I mean, how we do it, it's like, it's part of our process. Like, we've process-sized creativity in the media, workflow. So, it's simple stuff. Some of it is like simple, obvious. We hold an all agency brainstorm for almost every project that we do.
That's awesome. That's not that obvious. I've not heard of another company doing that. That's great. Yeah.
So just everyone gets a brief ahead of time. You have a couple days to read the brief. You jot down your notes in a collaborative document. You come to the 1 hour meeting and everyone talks and shares their ideas. And no idea is a bad idea. We incentivize people financially for coming up with creative ideas. That's kind of, like, we literally, like, if you, like, we have different tiers. Like, if you present something to a client that's never been done before, you get a bonus. If the client approves that idea, you get more.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Like, so and we make it part of the culture. So it's like people are reminded constantly to think that way. And anytime we're working on a project and we're looking at something, we should be asking ourselves, okay, what's new on here? What's different on here? What's exciting on here? What's exciting for the client on this? And then it's like your question about how do we get those ideas? The team is just very active. We're very active on Slack. Everyone's reading the trades. Everyone's really hungry to go to conferences. We attend a lot of them, the industry ones, subscribing.
What was that time I was talking to you and I feel like you were speeding to a Digiday conference? I have this vague memory. You were almost running late. You're like,
yeah.
And for those who don't know, you're a very punctual person. So that left me in this, oh my gosh, you're going to be.
Oh my God.
But you made it.
I remember, I was in between LA and Palm Springs and I had to like pull over to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Trying to get to anyway, so and we like to do, and the conferences are great, and we, being really active in the ad community is important, and meeting with partners, and we have weekly, lunch and learns. That's a pretty normal media thing to do.
We had I was in a meeting the other day, and clients like, oh, I'm curious how long everyone's been at the agency, and it was like, 7 years, 8 years, 5 years, and I was realizing, wow, the tenure, and a lot of the credit, of course, goes to Jamie Vera because I joined up with him like 3 years ago. So if anyone who's been here longer, it really has to do with like sort of the values that Jamie instilled in the company. Do you guys find you have a long tenure? Because the client, I might ask the client why you're asking the question. They're like, well, in the past they've been burned. Their teams like rotate out every 12 months, 18 months. And they said it's just really, it's hard for their business, which I can imagine. So having tenure is really, really important. And doing that and retaining employees has a lot to do with the culture, whether it be a lunch and learn or, investing in someone to go to a conference. What do you think your tenure is with your company? Do you think people are staying longer than the average?
I think so. Our stats are really strong. I think we have like every year it's like over 90% retention.
Wow. That's great.
Maybe 10% of people swap out. It increased a lot with COVID and hiring more people remotely, right? So we've learned that it can be harder for people to feel part of the culture remotely. So, if we hire someone remotely now, it's like being much more conscious about, are you sure that you want to be in a remote role? What's the plan going to be for you to come out here? We have to be much more intentional about stuff like that. Like I said, our stats are pretty darn good as far as retention. I think by and large, people like working here. It's like I said, we make it an incredibly dynamic environment. We will make it so that you're constantly learning new things. You're probably working on different accounts.
Yeah.
It's a young company, meaning, I don't mean it in terms of age of people, but I mean in terms of our life cycle. We're still very much in building. People join, they feel like, oh, I'm going to be part of building this thing, which they very much are,
Yeah.
I just hired a new VP and a new SVP just last year, and they're coming in after 10 years of existence or 9 years or whatever. And they're like building new capabilities and stuff for the agency that didn't exist before. And so it's like when you join, you're not just plugged into the thing, you're building.
That's great. Are you optimistic about AI being able to take some of the repetitive, time consuming task off your plate? Or is AI has it found its role in media? And if so, how would you describe its role today within a media business and where it might be tomorrow?
We're used to it being part of the back end of a lot of the technology that we use already. So, finding target audiences for us, being predictive about who we should reach, generating, headlines for search ads or social media ad. Like, we're used to it already working for us in those ways. I think the area where there's still like development is there is still so much work that is boring and manual, like billing and, things like that. That, like, I've heard that some people have figured out how to use AI to like solve that. We haven't figured that out yet. That's one area that I look forward to. And I just think like the speed at which like information can be summarized is super helpful. We use it for like creating briefings, creating like quick, summaries and recaps and meeting notes and, making email writing better, things like that. It's already doing. And tomorrow, I think more in terms of hopefully generating like the boring paperwork stuff for us and, making our decks look better and, and imagery and things like that. That would help a lot.
Where did you go to college? I don't even know. Where'd you go to college?
UC Berkeley.
I'm up in the Bay Area. I had no idea. Okay, Berkeley. I mean, you're managing director. So that means you as a leader have to be managing people. If you look at your own leadership style, and this is a very weird question, but I'm just curious, like, how would you describe your own leadership style? I want to hear it. And I kind of have a take on it, so I want to throw what I think it might be, but I want to hear you describe.
I am a very action-oriented person. So I am very solution-driven, get to the point, solve the problem, remove obstacles, and, move things forward. That is my style of leadership. So I am basically I'm not interested in like, and my team knows this about me. I'm super direct. I'm like, okay, what is this? All right. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? What's the plan? Very low levels of bureaucracy or process, or I'm just kind of like, what's the best way to get from here to there? Okay, let's do it. And then, let's all share. I'm kind of like, also like kind of creative and free flowing and like, let's share ideas. Let's do that. I don't like to let things get in the way of things. Does that describe it?
No, that totally describes it. And that's like, if I were in your organization, I would, you're a straight shooter. You're going to be direct. I mean, it helps that because you're curious and you are team oriented, there's a warmth that you give off, which, probably in your most direct moments doesn't feel as direct because your heart's in it and you're in it for the team and the thinking. But no, and by the way, no one's ever asked me that question. And, I think I'm just going to repeat your answer because I think that's how I would hope I am. I think, there are a lot of managing directors that I have talked to, and I want to ask you this question, who I worry about a little bit because they're becoming professionals in management and leaving behind their professionals in this business called media or whatever business they're in. They become less of the doers, less of the craftspeople, and more of the managers. And I just think in communications that move so quickly, if you're not in it, and it doesn't mean you have to be in the full weeds, but every once in a while you do have to get in the weeds. And if you are removed, I just worry that, some of my friends in their late 40s or late 50s are going to, put an expiration date on their learning. And then they're going to be out of a job because they become managers. And I think people want thinkers and doers before they want managers. But as a managing director, how often do you find yourself dipping into the work itself? I imagine on a pretty regular basis, but I'd love to hear what it really is.
I mean, that's probably been the biggest transition for me just really over the past year. Because as you can imagine, when we were 3 people, I was, the media planner.
Yeah.
And it's been an evolution of, bringing in teams of people to, as there's more work. And I just eventually, realized I can't do it. I can't do it all anymore. As much as I honestly I like it. Like how involved am I in the work? I mean, there are times when, especially with new business, I'm doing almost all of that, like hands-on doing, the work and getting the team to help and stuff. And then with client work, it's like, I still kind of, I'm pretty, I still like weigh in and listen in, and it's hard for me. I'm probably more on the side of like, I should let go a little bit more in certain ways. And I'm starting to now that I have more like senior people on the team. But I agree with you that like, I actually think it's really important to be also as a leader of an agency to be still in it and know things. Cause you know what I mean? Like I can go to my social team and be like, and talk to them and be like, oh, what about like this ad, format? Did you guys, can we do that one? And like the fact that hopefully the fact that they know that like I know about their platform at least a bit means that they will, take me seriously and respect my opinion on things. And I'm not just some like, business person locked away in a tower somewhere, Like
my thesis is this, is that, Jamie was just interviewed for, a publication, and they were asking about the partnership and, what kind of brings us together. And his answer was, we both genuinely love the business.
Yeah.
And I look at some of my peers that have become like professional managers. If they were really honest, they lost love for digital or the love for advertising or the love for filmmaking. And now they're just kind of exhausted and they just want to manage people. And I think there's a balance that I'll have in my own career, but you and I have a love for what we do. So that's going to always keep us attached to. It might be years from now, you know, you have 2 or 3 projects that are yours and you're not working on everything. But I would say to the listening audience, like especially in advertising, I mean, what I've seen in just on the production side with AI in the last week has just blown my mind. I mean, I talked to this guy in Hollywood who has run one of the most successful shows ever. I won't say the name, but one of the most successful TV shows ever. And he was just telling me how the management team like introduced him to some AI thing that they've been piloting. And he said, as he was in the room with the leaders, he was thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to replace 40 people's jobs. And that just happened last week. So it's fast moving. So you gotta become, you can't put on blinders. And that's the fun thing. That's why I'm optimistic about the future. Yes, it's going to be tricky, but we've gotten here. We've weathered some storms. Of course, there will be more storms. When you think about Exverus Media and you think about the media landscape, do you find yourself on the optimism spectrum? Are we feeling pretty optimistic?
There's always going to be new inventions and new creations and new products and new services. And the ones that exist now are going to change and grow, and new industries are happening. To me, there's never been, and I'm lucky, I guess, like there's never been a lack of work. Like I don't imagine a world where it's suddenly no one needs smart people to think about how to sell stuff. I mean, there's never, that is not going to be a world. There's always a world where they need smart people to sell stuff. And that's what we do. That's what we do, through our, particular, our palette that we use happens to be, paid advertising, and that could change. It could be something else. And what paid advertising has certainly changed. Right.
Yeah.
But it's, the exchange of money for people's attention to sell stuff. And that, I do not see that going away. It's how it happens is going to change so much. But if you are someone who is like has all the qualities that we described, you're passionate, you're interested, you follow what's happening and you assess it and analyze it and think about it and see how it applies, then you're going to have a career,
Talia, I can't thank you enough. You're super busy and you gave me a good 45 minutes. So I love having you on the show. More conversations in our future. I'm glad people listening will get to know you and Exverus Media better. And I will put the newsletter somewhere next to the podcast so people can check it out. But thank you very much. This was a good one. Thanks, Talia. I'll talk to you soon again.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.